The Hook, the battlefield, was quiet now, but not peaceful. Smoke rose from the broken ground, and the smell of burned metal still filled the air. The war had ended weeks ago, but for him, the war had never really stopped. He walked slowly across the ruins, his boots pressing into the black dust. His name was Aaron. His hair was gray now, though he was not yet old. The lines on his face came not from age, but from grief. Every step he took, he remembered the moment that had torn his life apart. He had once been a father with a small home and a little girl who laughed at the simplest things. Her name was Alara. She had a smile that could soften the hardest day, and a voice that carried light even in the darkest nights. But all of that had ended on the day of the great attack. The memory was burned into him. The sound of the bombs, the screaming of families running through the streets, the fire swallowing everything. He had grabbed Alara's hand and tried to run, but the ground shook. He remembered her face looking up at him in terror, just before the explosion pulled them apart. He had searched for her for days. His hands had dug through broken stone, his voice had shouted her name until his throat was raw. But there was no answer. In the end, he stood over the ruins of their street and told himself the truth he did not want to believe. His daughter was gone. From that day, Aaron carried the war not only in his body, but in his heart. His comrades told him to let go, to accept what had happened, but he never could. Every night he dreamed of her. Every morning he woke up with the same emptiness, and yet, something inside him never fully died. A father's hope is hard to kill. Weeks after the war ended, whispers began to spread. People spoke of strange things, stories of survivors in unlikely places. One rumor was different. In a burned village near the border, someone claimed they had seen a young girl. A girl with dark hair, a girl who looked too much like Alara. At first, Aaron refused to believe it. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break a man worse than grief. But when he heard it again from another traveler, and then from a wounded soldier, the whispers started to dig into him. One night, sitting alone by the fire, Aaron looked into the flames and asked himself a question he had been too afraid to ask for years. What if she is alive? The thought refused to leave him. He began to follow the rumors. He moved from village to village, asking questions, trading what little he had for information. Some laughed at him. Some told him to stop chasing ghosts. But some lowered their voices and gave him pieces of truth. They said a girl had been seen traveling with an enemy soldier. Not as a prisoner, but always close to him like family. They said the soldier was from the other side, the ones who had burned Aaron's world to the ground. At first, anger filled him. How could his daughter be with an enemy? How could she walk beside the very people who had destroyed their home? But then came fear. What if she was not free? What if she was a hostage forced to live under their control? The thought made his heart pound like the drums of war. He tried to imagine what she would look like now. She had been only 10 when he last saw her. If she lived, she would be older, changed by the years. Would she still smile the same way? Would she still call him father in that soft, hopeful voice? The more he thought of it, the less he could stay still. The war might have ended for the world, but for him, the real battle was only beginning. One evening, Aaron stood at the edge of a destroyed town. The sun was falling, painting the broken walls in red light. He looked at the horizon and whispered to himself, "If she is alive, I will find her. If she is gone, then I will know the truth." His journey had started, but he did not know that what waited ahead was not just reunion, not just answers. What waited was something far more dangerous. For a father searching for his lost child, nothing is impossible. But sometimes truth is harder to face than death itself. And in the shadows of the battlefield, someone was watching him already. The search Aaron's footsteps echoed on empty roads as he left the ruined town behind. The whispers about his daughter had grown into a storm inside his head. He could not silence them. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Alara's face, sometimes smiling, sometimes calling out for him, sometimes fading back into the smoke of that terrible day. The war had ended, but the land still carried scars. Villages were nothing more than piles of stone. Forests were black with ash. The rivers ran dark with mud and blood. People who survived were not the same as before. They were shadows of who they once were, walking with hollow eyes and broken voices. Aaron passed through these places asking questions, searching for any trace of the girl. At every fire, at every broken marketplace, he asked the same words. "Have you seen a girl with dark hair? About this tall? She might be with an enemy soldier." Most shook their heads. Some turned away in silence, afraid of bringing back old pain. A few muttered curses. "You'll find nothing but death if you follow them," they warned. "If the enemy soldier has her, she is lost." "Let go, old man," but Aaron could not let go. His heart refused to obey reason. One night he sat by a small campfire with a farmer who had lost his home. The man listened quietly as Aaron spoke of Alara, of the moment she was torn away from him. When Aaron's voice broke, the farmer placed a hand on his shoulder. "I heard something," the man whispered. "A girl with eyes like fire seen near the border. They say she never cries. She walks beside one of their soldiers, always close. Some call him her guardian. Some call him her captor. No one knows the truth." Aaron's chest tightened. He pressed for more, but the farmer could only shake his head. "Stories, that's all. But stories don't grow from nothing." The next morning, Aaron rose before dawn. His path was set, days stretched into weeks. He crossed ruined bridges and climbed through burned-out forests. Hunger clawed at him, but hope kept him moving. Sometimes he would catch a sound, a child's laughter, a girl's voice carried on the wind, and his heart would leap only to sink again when he found nothing. At night, he dreamed of her. Sometimes she was still the little girl who ran through fields of flowers calling for him. Other nights, she stood in the shadows beside a soldier, whose face Aaron could never see. In those dreams, her eyes were unreadable, half joy, half sorrow. The uncertainty drove him deeper into obsession. In one broken city, he found an old woman selling bread. When he asked about the girl, she stared at him for a long time before answering. "Yes," she said slowly. "I saw her. Not long ago. She was walking with a tall soldier, one of theirs." "But—" the woman lowered her voice. She did not look afraid. She looked safe. Safe. The word cut him like a blade. Safe with the enemy? How could that be? Aaron left the city with his mind torn in two. One side screamed that she was a prisoner and he must free her. The other whispered a darker thought. What if she had chosen them over him? The idea poisoned him, but he kept moving forward. One evening he reached a valley where broken machines of war still lay rusting in the dirt. He climbed onto a ruined tank and stared at the horizon. In the distance, smoke rose from a camp. His instincts sharpened. Something told him the trail was close. He waited until nightfall, then moved silently toward the firelight. From the shadows, he saw them. A group of enemy soldiers sat around the fire, their weapons stacked nearby. And among them, his breath caught, was a girl. She was older now, her hair longer, her shoulders stronger. But even in the dim light, Aaron recognized her. The shape of her face, the tilt of her head. It was Alara. For a moment, time stopped. He wanted to run forward, to shout her name, to pull her into his arms. But his body froze, because beside her sat one of the soldiers, not like the rest. He sat close, speaking softly to her as if they shared a bond. Aaron's fists tightened. His heart thundered in his chest. Was she his prisoner? Or something worse? As the fire cracked and the soldiers laughed, Alara glanced toward the darkness. Her eyes seemed to search the night. For a heartbeat, Aaron thought she was looking right at him. He pressed himself deeper into the shadows, torn between fear and hope. His daughter was alive. He had found her. But the truth of her life now, why she was with them, why she was with him, was a mystery more painful than death. Aaron whispered to himself, barely breathing, "Alara, my child." His search was over, but his battle was only beginning. The discovery Aaron's hands shook as he crouched in the shadows. The firelight flickered across the soldiers' faces, but his eyes were fixed only on her. Alara, his daughter, alive. For years he had carried her memory like a wound that never healed. He had buried her in his heart, told himself she was gone, yet here she was, sitting by the fire, her face older, but unmistakable. He wanted to run to her, to call her name, to hold her the way he once had. But fear locked his body, because beside her was the enemy. The soldier sat close, too close, as though guarding her, or worse, claiming her. His armor was scarred, his eyes sharp even in the low light. Alara leaned near him when she spoke. She laughed softly at something he said, and the sound pierced Aaron like a blade. Why was she laughing with him? Why was she at his side, as if she belonged there? Aaron pressed a hand over his mouth to silence his breathing. His mind spun. Was she a prisoner? forced to act friendly to survive? Or had the years changed her so much that she had accepted the enemy as her own? The fire crackled and one soldier stood stretching. Aaron's instincts flared. If they found him here, hidden in the dark, he would not live long enough to touch his daughter's hand. He moved back deeper into the ruins, his boots crunching softly on broken stone. Every sound felt louder than thunder. He found a corner of collapsed wall and crouched, watching. His heart raced, his throat dry. The questions tore at him. Should he reveal himself? Should he wait? Should he watch longer? Ilara's face was clearer now, framed by the glow of the fire. She was not the small child he remembered. She was taller, stronger, her eyes older. Yet there was something familiar still. The way she tilted her head, the way her hands moved when she spoke. He remembered her as a girl running through fields, chasing butterflies. Now she sat among soldiers who had destroyed those very fields. The contrast made his chest ache. Hours passed. The soldiers drank and talked, their voices low. Ilara eventually lay down, her head resting against her pack. The enemy soldier pulled a blanket over her shoulders, almost tenderly. Aaron's jaw tightened. His heart wanted to storm the fire, to drag her away, but his mind told him it would mean death. For him, maybe even for her. So he waited. When the camp finally grew quiet, Aaron slipped back into the forest. He kept his eyes fixed on the smoke that rose from their fire. Every step was heavy with questions he could not answer. For the first time in years, he felt something stronger than grief. It was fear, not of losing her, but of finding her changed. The next day, he followed from a distance. The group moved carefully along the river. Ilara walked near the soldier, never far from him. She looked healthy, not like someone kept in chains. Her steps were steady, her face calm. It was not the face of a captive. Aaron's chest burned with confusion. If she was free, why had she never searched for him? Why had she stayed with them? At one point, the soldier helped her climb over fallen logs. Aaron clenched his fists until his nails cut into his palms. That was his place, his role as her father. To protect, to guide. And yet another man had taken it. Still, he did not move. He followed silently, staying just out of sight. When night came again, the soldiers stopped near the ruins of an old bridge. Aaron crept closer. His body was tired, his mind tormented, but his heart demanded answers. He found a high ridge that overlooked their camp. From there, he saw her again, resting against her pack while the soldier sharpened his blade. Aaron studied the man. His face was young but hardened by war. There was no cruelty in his eyes, only weariness. And that made the mystery worse. Was he captor? Or protector? Aaron thought of the moment years ago when the ground split and fire swallowed everything. He remembered reaching for Ilara's hand only to lose her in the chaos. He had blamed the enemy for her death. But what if fate had twisted things differently? What if one of them had saved her when he could not? The thought shook him. As the firelight dimmed, Aaron whispered to himself, "Ilara, do you remember me?" His voice was barely sound, carried only by the wind. He pictured stepping down into the light, calling her name. He pictured her eyes filling with tears, her arms rushing to hold him. That dream had carried him through the years, but another vision crept in too. A darker one. Her turning away, her choosing the soldier instead. That fear froze him where he stood, so he stayed in the shadows, silent, watching. The truth was too close, too sharp, and he was not ready to bleed again. Aaron knew one thing. His daughter was alive. That was hope. But hope was dangerous, and he had learned to be careful with it. He would not rush. He would wait. He would find the right moment. And when that moment came, he would face not only his daughter, but the truth of the years between them. The doubt. The nights grew colder as Aaron followed the group from the shadows. He was close enough to hear their laughter, close enough to see his daughter's face in the firelight, yet still far away, separated not by distance, but by fear. Each step of the journey carved doubt deeper into his heart. He had found Ilara, but the girl he saw now was not the same child he remembered. The little one who once ran barefoot through meadows, chasing butterflies and singing to herself, was gone. In her place stood someone older, harder, shaped by years he had not been part of, and always beside her was the enemy soldier. Aaron tried to convince himself she was only surviving, that she had no choice but to stay near him. But then he would see her laugh or watch the way her eyes softened when the soldier spoke. Those small moments were knives in Aaron's chest. One night, as he lay hidden in the trees above their camp, he whispered to himself, "Does she even remember me?" The question was a poison. The next morning, he followed them across an abandoned field. A cold wind swept over the land, carrying the smell of rust and smoke from old battles. Alara walked beside the soldier, not behind him, not chained. She looked free, too free. Aaron's heart pounded with questions. Why had she not searched for him when the war ended? Why had she not returned to the ruins of their home? Had she chosen to stay with the enemy instead of trying to find her father? Every possibility was worse than the last. His thoughts twisted until even his hope began to rot. Perhaps she had forgotten him. Perhaps the years had washed away her memory of the man who once carried her on his shoulders and told her stories under the stars. The soldier had taken that place now. Aaron stopped walking, his knees heavy with despair. The truth he feared most crept into his mind. Maybe she doesn't need me anymore. That night he dreamed of the past. He saw Alara as a child, standing in their garden, holding a broken doll. She had looked up at him with tears in her eyes and asked him to fix it. He remembered the way she smiled when he mended it, the way she clung to him as though he could fix anything. But the dream twisted. Suddenly it was not him who gave her the doll back, it was the soldier. And in the dream, Alara smiled not at Aaron, but at the man in enemy armor. Aaron woke with a cry, his chest burning, his face wet with tears. The dream was false, but the pain was real. The days that followed were worse. He watched the soldier help Alara climb a steep hill. He saw him share food with her when the rations were low. He saw the way Alara spoke to him, not with fear, but with trust. It made no sense. The enemy had destroyed everything Aaron loved. They had burned his city, taken his wife, torn his daughter from him. Yet now one of them stood in his place, filling the role of protector and companion. Aaron's hatred warred with his hope. He wanted to hate the soldier, to kill him where he stood. But another part of him, a small part, wondered if the man had saved Alara when Aaron could not. And that thought was unbearable. One evening, Alara wandered from the camp to fetch water from the river. Aaron followed quietly, staying hidden among the reeds. For the first time, she was alone. His heart thundered. He could reveal himself now. He could speak her name and she would see him, and everything would change. He stepped forward, ready to call out, then stopped. She knelt at the water's edge, filling her flask, and for a moment she looked so peaceful. Then she turned her head slightly and whispered something. Aaron froze. The soldier appeared from the trees, standing beside her. She smiled up at him. Aaron's throat tightened. Even in her solitude, she was not truly alone. She had chosen his company. She trusted him enough to let him stay near. Aaron stumbled back into the shadows, unable to breathe. The words he had almost spoken died in his mouth. That night he could not sleep. He sat against a tree, staring at the stars. His mind was a storm of memories and fears. Did Alara think of him at all? Did she remember the father who once promised to protect her? Or had the years erased him from her heart? The more he thought, the heavier the doubt grew. He began to wonder if his presence would even matter to her. What if she looked at him and saw only a stranger? Aaron clenched his fists, whispering into the dark. She is my daughter. She must remember me. She must. But his voice sounded weak even to his own ears. By dawn, his doubt had hardened into something dangerous. He no longer feared only losing her. He feared the truth that he had already lost her, not to death, but to someone else. Still he followed. His love chained him to her steps, even as doubt ate away at his heart. The search was no longer just about finding Alara. It was about finding out if she still belonged to him at all. And deep inside, Aaron feared the answer, the confrontation. The forest was quiet, but Aaron's heart was not. It beat like a war drum in his chest as he crouched in the darkness, watching the camp below. He had followed them for days, maybe weeks. Time had lost its meaning. Every moment had been filled with doubt and fear. But tonight he knew he could not wait any longer. His daughter was alive and she was right there. Every second he delayed was a second stolen from him. The soldiers sat around the fire, talking in low voices. Alara was close to the enemy soldier, her head resting on her knees, her eyes heavy with sleep. Aaron's fists tightened. That sight filled him with both relief and rage. Relief because she was alive. Rage because she leaned on another man for safety. He crept down from the ridge, moving like a shadow between trees and broken stone. The wind covered his steps, carrying the smell of pine and ash. When he reached the edge of the camp, he paused. His hand hovered over the knife at his belt. His breath came in short bursts. This was it. The moment he had dreamed of, feared, and chased for so many years. He stepped forward. A twig snapped beneath his boot. At once the soldiers shot to their feet. Weapons clattered as they drew blades and raised rifles. The fire crackled brighter in the sudden motion. Aaron froze, his body tense. His eyes locked on Alara. She looked up, startled, her face pale in the firelight. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at each other. Her lips parted. She whispered, almost too soft to hear. "Father?" The sound shattered him. It was her voice. The same voice he had carried in memory for years. But before he could answer, the soldier beside her leapt forward, blade in hand. Aaron reacted without thinking. He drew his knife, his muscles coiled like springs. They circled each other, predator and predator, the fire casting long shadows over their faces. The soldier's eyes burned with suspicion. "Who are you?" he demanded in a harsh voice. "Why are you following us?" Aaron didn't answer. His throat was tight, his gaze fixed only on Alara. She had risen to her feet, trembling. "Stay back!" The soldier barked, moving to shield her. Aaron's rage broke loose. "She is mine!" he shouted, his voice raw. "She is my daughter." The camp fell into silence. The words hung in the air like a blade. Alara's eyes widened. Tears filled them, spilling down her cheeks. Her voice cracked as she cried out, "Father!" She ran forward before anyone could stop her. She threw herself into his arms, and Aaron dropped the knife to hold her. His body shook as he clutched her against his chest. He buried his face in her hair, breathing her in, hardly believing she was real. "Alara, my child, I thought I lost you forever." His voice broke, heavy with years of grief. But the moment of joy was fragile. The soldier stormed forward, blade raised. "Get away from her." He snarled. Alara spun, her arms still clinging to Aaron. "No!" she screamed. "Stop!" "He is my father." The soldier froze, confusion flashing across his face. His grip on the blade trembled. He looked between Alara and Aaron, his jaw tight. Aaron's eyes burned with fury. "You kept her from me," he growled. "You stole her life." The soldier shook his head. "No, you don't understand." Aaron stepped forward, his body tense like a bowstring ready to snap. "Then explain why she is with you." The soldier's voice was low, almost pained. "Because I saved her. She would have died if I hadn't found her." The fire cracked. The other soldiers watched in silence, their hands still on weapons but their faces unsure. Aaron's mind twisted. Saved her? By the hands of the enemy? It was too much to believe. Too much to accept. Alara grabbed both men, her voice shaking. "Stop, please!" She looked at Aaron, her eyes desperate. "He's telling the truth. When the bombs fell, I was alone. He found me. He protected me. Without him, I wouldn't be alive." The words cut Aaron in two. Relief, guilt, and anger collided inside him. His knees almost buckled beneath the weight of it. He stared at the soldier. For the first time, he saw not an enemy, but a man. Tired, scarred, carrying burdens of his own. But the rage was still there, burning deep. The confrontation did not end in blood, but it did not end in peace either. Aaron held his daughter close, his heart pounding with love and fury. The soldier lowered his blade, but did not step aside. Between them stood Alara, the girl both men claimed in different ways, one by blood, the other by fate, and as the fire burned low, Aaron realized something terrifying. Finding his daughter was not the end of the battle. It was only the beginning. The truth. The fire had burned low, leaving only glowing embers that cracked softly in the night air. Aaron sat close to Alara, unwilling to let her go, his arms trembling from the weight of holding her again after so many lost years. His face was buried in her hair as if he feared she would vanish if he loosened his grip. But across the fire, the soldier sat in silence, blade still resting on his knees, eyes never leaving them. His jaw was set, his breath heavy. The other soldiers had drifted to the shadows, watching but not interfering. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Alara pulled back slightly, her hands gripping her father's rough shoulders. Her eyes shone with tears. "Father, it's really you," she whispered. Aaron cupped her face in his hands. "I searched. I never stopped searching. I thought I buried you in the ruins that day." His voice broke and his words trembled with grief. "But you were alive. All this time you were alive. Alara nodded, her lips quivering. Then she glanced toward the soldier. Her voice lowered. I need to tell you the truth. Aaron stiffened. His gaze flicked to the soldier, then back to his daughter. Tell me, child, everything. She took a shaky breath. When the bombs fell, I was thrown into the fire. You were gone. I tried to crawl, but I couldn't. The air was black. The ground shook. And then... She closed her eyes. I thought I would die there. Her hand trembled as she reached for the soldier. But he found me. Aaron's body stiffened as though struck. His eyes burned with both fury and disbelief. He one of them? The enemy? The soldier's voice broke the silence, low, steady. I was a soldier, yes. But I saw her crying in the ruins. She was covered in dust and blood. She was just a child. I couldn't leave her. Aaron's fist clenched. You burned our homes. You killed our people. And you expect me to believe you saved her out of mercy? The soldier's eyes hardened. I didn't start the war. I was a boy forced into it. But when I found her, I chose to protect her. For years I carried her, fed her, kept her alive while others would have used her or left her behind. His hand trembled, just slightly. Whatever else you think of me, know this, she survived because of me. Aaron turned to Alara, desperate, his voice raw. Is that true? Alara's eyes filled with tears again. Yes, every word. Father, he saved me more than once. When raiders came, when hunger struck, when I was sick, he never let me go. He is not my captor. He is my guardian. Aaron's world tilted. His mind screamed in protest, but his daughter's voice was truth he could not deny. She had grown, yes, but her eyes still carried the honesty of the child he once knew. He lowered his head, torn apart inside. Alara placed her small, shaking hand over his. I never forgot you, not once. I prayed every night that you were alive. But as the years passed, I thought you were gone, and if he had not been there, Father, I would not be here now. The soldier looked down, his voice rough. She was never mine. She was always yours. But I promised myself she would live, even if I had to give my life for her. Aaron's chest ached. His hatred screamed to rise, to strike at the man who wore the armor of his enemies. But another voice, smaller, quieter, whispered a question he had avoided for years. What matters more, revenge? Or her life? The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken words. Alara looked between them, tears streaking her face. Please don't fight. I cannot lose either of you. One gave me life, the other gave me survival. I need you both. Aaron's eyes blurred. He had never imagined this choice. To accept that his daughter's savior was one of the very men he had sworn to hate, it was unbearable. But the proof sat in front of him, alive, breathing, clinging to his hand. If he struck the soldier down, he would not only spill blood, he would wound Alara's heart. Aaron's hand shook as he pressed it against his eyes. His voice cracked like old wood. All these years I cursed the enemy for taking you. And now I find one of them gave you back. The soldier's jaw clenched. I am no hero. I did terrible things in the war. But this child, she was the one thing I did not let the war destroy. Aaron lifted his gaze at last, his voice low and broken. I should hate you. Every part of me screams to hate you. The soldier met his eyes. Then hate me. But do not take her hope away. Alara gripped Aaron's hand tighter, her voice pleading. Father, please, don't make me choose. The fire's glow dimmed, the night colder than before. Aaron sat in silence, staring at the soldier, then at his daughter. His heart was torn between vengeance and gratitude, between the past and the fragile future. Finally, he let out a long, broken breath. He reached for Alara and pulled her close again, whispering into her hair. You are all that matters. You always were. But inside, the storm did not end. He had learned the truth that his daughter had been saved, not stolen. Yet truth was heavier than any lie, because now the hardest part was not finding her. It was deciding what to do with the man who had kept her alive. The choice. Dawn crept over the horizon, turning the forest silver with light. The fire in the camp had burned to ash, and the soldiers were preparing to move. Yet Aaron sat still, his hand wrapped around his daughter's, his mind heavy with storms. He had found her. He had touched her. He had heard her voice call him father again. That should have been the end of his suffering, but instead it was only the beginning of a harder war, the war inside his heart. Across the camp, the soldier who had guarded Alara strapped on his armor. His eyes never left Aaron, sharp with caution. Between them hung the weight of unspoken words. One saw the other as an enemy, the other as the reason his daughter was alive. Alara stood between them. Her hands shook as she reached toward both men, her voice trembling. "Please, we don't have to fight. The war is over." But for Aaron, the war had never ended. The faces of the dead haunted him. His wife's screams, his home in flames, the years of loneliness. They were wounds that no dawn could heal. And here, standing before him, was a man in the very uniform he had sworn to destroy. His hand tightened on his knife. The soldier stepped forward, blade already drawn. "If you mean to kill me," he said, voice steady, "do it. But understand this, if I fall, I will not fight back in front of her." He glanced at Alara, his jaw clenched. "She has seen enough violence." Aaron's chest heaved. His anger roared, telling him to strike, to end the years of hatred with one cut. But then his daughter cried out, grabbing his arm, "Father, no." Her eyes were wide, desperate. "If you kill him, you kill a part of me too. Don't you see? He kept me alive when you could not. I love you, but I cannot hate him." Her words tore through Aaron like arrows. His arm shook, the knife slipping in his grip. He looked into her face, older now, scarred by years, yet still the same child who once called him her hero. But that same face now begged him not for vengeance, but for mercy. Could he deny her that? The forest fell silent as Aaron lowered the blade. His breath came in ragged bursts, his shoulders trembling. He dropped the knife into the dirt, the sound sharp in the stillness. Alara sobbed and threw her arms around him, relief flooding her face. "Thank you, Father," she whispered. The soldier watched, his eyes unreadable. Slowly, he sheathed his weapon and stepped back. Aaron turned to him, his voice harsh. "I do not forgive you. I may never forgive you. Your people took everything from me." The soldier bowed his head slightly. "I know, and if hatred is what you need, then keep it. But let her live without it." Aaron's jaw clenched. He wanted to spit venom, to scream, to curse the man's name. But when he looked at Alara, her hands gripping both of theirs, he realized the truth. The war had already taken too much. If he let hate consume him now, he would lose her again, this time by choice. His voice broke as he whispered, "I almost lost you once. I will not lose you again." The group of soldiers began to move, ready to leave the valley. The soldier lingered only a moment, his gaze locked on Alara. She looked back at him, sorrow in her eyes, and nodded. No words were spoken, yet the meaning was clear. He had been her protector, her shield in the years of fire and hunger. And though their paths were parting now, she would never forget him. Aaron watched, torn between gratitude and rage, as the man turned and disappeared into the trees. The echoes of his footsteps faded, leaving only silence behind. Alara clung to Aaron's side, her face buried in his chest. He held her tightly as if the world might tear her away again. At last she whispered, "Father, do you hate me? Because I cared for him?" Aaron shook his head, pressing his lips against her hair. "Never, I could never hate you. I only hate the years we lost." His voice cracked. "But we have today. And tomorrow. That is enough." As they walked away from the camp, Aaron looked once more toward the forest where the soldier had vanished. His heart was heavy, but something had shifted. Hatred had been his companion for so long, but in its place something quieter now lived. A bitter kind of respect. He whispered to himself, though Alara did not hear, "Enemy or not, thank you." The sun rose higher, painting the sky with gold. Father and daughter walked side by side, their shadows long on the ruined earth. Behind them lay warfire and sorrow. Ahead of them lay uncertainty. But for the first time in years, Aaron felt something warm in his chest. Not peace, not yet, but a fragile beginning. He tightened his grip on Alara's hand. She looked up at him and smiled through her tears. And in that smile, Aaron found his answer. The choice had been made. He would not let the past steal his future. And though the scars of war would never fade, he had won the only victory that mattered, finding his daughter again.